Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us for this important session. And this is, as you've already received the concept notes of this webinar. This is a series of discussion around reproductive justice and topics regarding reproductive justice, and we will zero in on its relevance in our work for abortion rights and why we actually invited friends and colleagues from Indonesia and India, and also right now we have people from Kenya and Tanzania. Why these particular people right now is that because we see that this could be our future. We could have our future collaboration. We have been working with WGNR as them as WGNR partners and members in the past, and we have been working with hidden pockets in a long time. And but then we haven't really have this chance to what are we going to do really, as as two organizations together. I know they are a member of WGNR, but I'm not looking at them as a member anymore, but more of a partner that they can input into this process as well. And so we are happy to have this. This is a learning session, not only for you, everyone in the room right now, but also for the WGNR team as well. We are exploring the issue on reproductive justice. We have been campaigning on reproductive justice, but it's also about time that we are really, are able to see how we can actually fit this framework into our work for SRHR for all, specifically to ensuring youth leadership in SRHR. So I hope you stay for this series 4-part webinar with us. And yeah, so thank you for taking the time, and we love to hear from you later, your thoughts. This is going to be not in any way a very formal one. We want to have a very open discussion as well, but noting that this is a safe space, and if in any way that you don't want to be recorded, just tell us so. So thank you very much, and enjoy, have fun. This is a fun process.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bing. Once again, we would like to thank everyone for attending this. And to formally start off our webinar, we actually invited someone from Resurj, and she's also a member of Hidden Pockets Collective. We would like to welcome everyone, Jasmine Lovely George, to speak about SRHR, reproductive justice, and reproductive justice in the Global South. Jasmine.
Thank you, Sarina. So, hi everyone. My name is Jasmine Lovely George, and before I start the session, I just wanted to say something. So, I do realize a lot of us are from Philippines and Indonesia here. So, if people don't understand my accent, or if you feel like I'm too fast, please let me know on the chat. I'm good with multitasking, so I can keep checking your messages. Also, if I mispronounce some of your names, I'm sorry. You can correct me, let me know. I would be more than happy to learn new names. Also, Serena introduced most of us as young people. I have crossed 30, so I've stopped using the young word now, and I say young at heart, and I'm gonna stay with that throughout. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, and just letting you know, it's always nice to have a space with advocates from South Asia who are willing to work on SRHR work, just because it's a very, very difficult work. I keep forgetting how little we are as a group. It's such a small group, and how difficult the work is. I was just reading about Indonesia and Philippines, specifically with regard to abortion. I keep forgetting that how, like, the laws are against abortion. Everything is so tough in our region, in the Southeast Asia region, in South Asia. So hats off to all you young advocates who are working on this. The idea of today's session is very simple. we as a collective, as a group, will try to learn and unlearn some of the concepts we have. An idea is by the end of this session, we should have some of our concepts clear. If we are willing to unlearn some concepts, we'll do that as a group. Also to have some tools, so by end of this 1.5 hours, if we have some tools, because every time we say that, oh, this is not good enough, this is not good enough, people ask, then what? If you don't want this, then what do you want? So the idea is by end of the session, we will have something concrete. So I would ask all of you to keep typing throughout if you have doubts, and I'll take it up as the questions come in, because I do realize this group is very active, at least on the chat box. So lovely to have an interactive group like this. It's always nice. And yeah, so I have a slideshow, but idea is to keep it interactive. If anybody has a very burning question or a burning intervention, I would actually ask people to please feel free and raise your hand, or just put it in a comment, and I'll be more than happy to keep. I mean, if Sarina can in some way unmute people, they can speak. Also, I would like to keep it interactive because we are talking things which are very deep. So it would be nice to know how these concepts actually make sense in your country. So do remember, if I'm sitting in India, my context is very different from Tanzania or people sitting in Indonesia. So this is a time for me also to learn from you people, and whoever all of us were sitting from different countries, we can teach each other. Okay, so that's the whole plan of today. Really excited. So I'll start with a slideshow and we'll start the session now. Just give me 1 second. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, great. So I would just introduce Resurj. So Resurj is basically an international alliance of feminists, younger feminists, and we basically are a collective of around 14 members, and all of us are from Global South. So when I say Global South, it's basically, it's more from an economic sense, that countries which were not part of the colonies or who don't have economic power. So a lot of us came together and we realized that when we are making changes in the UN, and or when we are asking for policy changes at international level, somehow our voices are not being heard. And especially the younger voices. There are no younger feminists there. There are not young people asking for changes. And when we reach at the UN, we realize how scary it is. So Resurj as a collective came together to teach younger feminists, to give them the tools and teach them how you don't have to be scared of these spaces and go ahead and make those changes. So this is Resurj, and Resurj has been working around reproductive justice for some time now and trying to build a framework on reproductive justice. That is something we are going to go deep today, and we will be talking about it, like what exactly is reproductive justice and does it make sense in our context. So this is our members, and this year we have been trying to figure out, in our idea of reproductive justice, it's actually a little more bigger than that. We follow SRJ framework, which is basically sexual and reproductive justice. So we believe that if we as young people or as people need to have a fulfilled life, we need to have a life which is free of discrimination, we need to have a justice which is seen from a sexual perspective, from a reproductive perspective. So that is something we have been thinking very seriously about at Resurj. And this is a question even I would be asking the group later, that do you think reproductive justice is enough, or should we further push for sexual justice also? This is our agenda, basically, where we have been trying to make differences, and this agenda helps us to keep in line, like what are the things that we would like to achieve, what was the reason that Resurj came in together, and what are some of the goals that we would like to achieve. So our action agenda, as you can read it on the screen, is to realize sexual and reproductive justice for all women, adolescents, girls, and trans and non-binary people. So that's the bigger agenda of Resurj, and then we have all these action points. So before we get into reproductive justice, I just wanted to just ask people that, have you heard of this term reproductive justice in your own countries? Have you ever heard of reproductive justice? Maybe in Indonesia or in Tanzania, in India? Is that, like, when you hear the word justice, is reproductive justice something that you have been asked for, or anybody who has asked for a thought about it? If people can unmute themselves and just say yes, no, if just giving me context of your own countries, that will be helpful.
Actually, in the Philippines, in particular in WGNRR, we've already heard of reproductive justice, and we're also, of course, trying to learn more about it. But we still have a lot of things to learn more about this concept, especially. And I think it would be really helpful for us, especially to the young people, that are also here in the Philippines, the young advocates for SRHR members, to also be familiar with this concept.
Thank you. Anybody else in their own context, in their own countries, who have heard this word reproductive justice?
Jasmine. So
Yes,
I'm from India. So I heard about reproductive justice only from this whatever organizations, collaborations, and all work related, or the government side. But I know that there are laws, but nobody's speaking about it. Nobody's implementing them.
thank you. And anybody else? I'm asking this question, it's because when we talk about justice, reproductive justice is not something that comes naturally. We when we say justice, everybody thinks about law, but reproductive justice, the word reproductive, it's very specific to one thing, reproduction. And can you think about it? Why is that, in your own little in your experience, why do you think we need justice related to reproduction? I can tell you the history and everything, but do you feel like there is justice, we have laws, we have rights, why do you need specifically for reproductive? Anybody can, if you feel free, like, just unmute and you can tell me. And please do feel it's a small group, so whatever you feel like, there's no right or wrong. It's actually to, and please do remember, we're all from different countries, so I don't know anything about your country, so I'm actually just here to listen and help you think with each other. Do you think it makes sense, or we don't need this word, reproductive justice? Justice is good enough. So basically, when the first time reproductive justice, the word came in, I think so we had a similar kind of approach where a lot of people didn't understand, why do you need reproductive justice? Why do you need, why do you need different identities? Why do you need different kind of services? Why do you need identities focused movement? And if you go back to the history a little bit, reproductive justice, the word itself, it's very much rooted in Black history, Black movement. And for the simple reason was this: when people were protesting in US for access to health, access to services, they realized that even though everybody has equal rights, when, because of the fact that they were Black, they were not able to access anything, forget reproduction, any access to any health services. They realized their realities were not being reflected in the laws. Their demands were not being reflected in the laws. What they wanted from law, what they wanted from health system were not being reflected. And that was the first time a lot of people started coming together and saying that this form of justice is not good enough for us. We need something more than this. We need something which is more catered to us. It's like this. I'll give you a simple example. When I was growing up, if you can notice, I have curly hair, and I grew up in a part of my country where everything, where I see people around, everybody had straight hair, straight, extremely straight hair, whereas I have curly hair. So when I was growing up, for the longest time, I kept on thinking that my hair is not normal. This is how things should not be, and I always wanted to have straighten my hair. And it was for the simple reason, for media, for TVs, wherever I saw, I never saw myself reflected in anything. So I kept on thinking that whatever institutions I had nearby, they are not for me. Similarly, when Black people started demanding, saying that whatever being given to them, it's not reflecting, it's not actually talking about their rights, it's not talking about their needs. They said they want something more than that. And that was the first time. And even in Black people, it was Black women who said that even if we are getting equal rights, when we are talking about our own bodies, when we are talking about our own issues, my uterus, my body, my right to abortion, my right to have a baby, my right to have families, it's not reflecting my identity, which was being Black. So reproductive justice has history rooted in that, but a lot of our countries, if we really look into it, have practices which were discriminatory in nature. So I'll give you an example from my country, which is a practice which is discriminatory in nature and which has affected the way most of us access health services. So I don't know if people know about it, but you can also give me examples from your country, which is a discriminatory practice. So in India, we have something called the caste system. And basically, it's a discriminatory practice which says that one caste is better than the other caste. And I'm making it sound very simple, but it's extremely discriminatory where people from the lower caste are not allowed to touch water, not allowed to enter. There are people from higher caste who won't even touch their bodies. And because of these practices, even when we have laws which says that everybody should be treated equal, when you go to a hospital, doctors refuse to touch the women. Doctors refuse to do delivery of a pregnancy because they would say this woman is from a lower caste. And that was the time Dalit people started realizing and started saying that these laws are not reflecting. These laws are not talking about our rights because we haven't changed the caste system. The practices of people, the inherent discrimination, the social systems that we had around, nothing has changed. Just because the law has passed does not mean that suddenly everybody will believe that everybody is equal. The practices, the discrimination is so rooted in our institutions that it's difficult to make those big changes just by passing a law. And reproductive justice is one of those languages. It gives you an option to say that we need something more. We need a justice approach that is rooted in our own realities. We need a justice approach which talks about our realities. It is not a one fit model. So when I say one fit model, it basically means that law has this tendency of passing just common laws. So from tomorrow onwards, everybody who has straight hair should be able to get this shampoo. That's it. That's the law. But what about people who don't have hair? What about people who don't have money? What about people who don't have who don't have access? They can't move. So all those realities, laws don't look at it because for law, all of us are equal. Whereas reproductive justice says that no, if you need to root our justice approach in everybody's reality, we need to take care of institutions, and reproductive justice gives us that kind of a framework. So that was just one example from my country, India. Do you, in your countries, are there any practices that you think in 2020 makes no sense? Any other country, any practices, maybe something from Indonesia or something from other countries who are participating today? Does anybody have any examples that we can also learn about, which you think are extremely discriminatory and it's really preventing people from accessing better services?
Can I say something, Jasmine?
Yes, Sarina.
I think this is very relevant to the young people still in the Philippines that if they want and when they want to access contraceptives, for example, they cannot freely access this because there's still this stigma that when a young person access contraceptive methods or something like that, they will be tagged as promiscuous or they the people around will just really have a negative thoughts about this person because especially for girls, for the young girls, because they will be tagged as they're young and yet they're already engaging in sex or yet unsafe sex, etc. There's still that kind of notion here in the Philippines.
So is it okay in your all countries to for single people or unmarried people to have sex? Is it okay? Like in India, it's not okay. We actually can be picked up by laws. It's not okay. Is it okay in your own countries?
Here in the Philippines, when an unmarried person, is it right? Did I hear it right? Like when an unmarried person
Yeah.
engaged in sex, oh, there's still that stigma there here. There's still that negative, of course, negative thinking that they're not, they shouldn't do that, especially when young people are doing that and they're unmarried.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, Jasmine. Here, like Sarina has said, that there is that stigma and around, we call it premarital sex. So when you are committing premarital sex, you're actually a loose person. But as the years go by, even in our policy, not in a formal law, but in our policy already recognize domestic partnership, not in a formal way, but you can actually declare in your forms, for example, that you fill in a formal manner that you are cohabitating or live-in partnership.
Yeah.
But that's just very recently. But that notwithstanding that, it's being accepted, still you're still being looked at as a, as a loose woman having premarital sex, or yeah, or if you're a guy, you're a fuck boy.
Does anybody else want to share about what's happening in their country? Or is it okay for unmarried people to have sex?
Um, there are some chats from our Indonesian participants. Priscilla says that what's happening in the Philippines is the same as what's happening in Indonesia. Also, Apriska says that stigma and discrimination are still some of the big problems too
Correct.
in Indonesia.
Correct. So, all these issues, they were already discussed decades back when reproductive justice movement started. And it was very simple facts. Women, Black women, they came forward and they started saying that if you really want justice to happen, we should be able to, and my screen has it, but it might sound like it's so simple, but imagine 50 years and we're still fighting for these rights. So we should be able to decide freely when to have babies and the conditions under which when we have babies. We should be able to decide whether we want to have a baby or not, and if we don't want to, how do we prevent or end a pregnancy. We should be able to decide whether we want to have a family, what kind of a family, what kind of support we get, and what kind of environment and healthy communities we have around it. And this is actually just pushing it and bringing in the sexual justice part, but we should be able to live in an enabling environment for a pleasurable exercise of sexuality. So idea was very simple. If as a person, as a human being, if I am not able to make decisions on my body, if I'm not able to make control of my own body, then this justice that I've been given, or this rights that I've been given by the state, it's not good enough. If my body is being controlled by the state, or by my family, or by my partner, this is not the justice we want. Reproductive justice basically says that no person no person should be forced to make a decision that they don't want to make. And this is the language which is very much rooted in a individual self. And now when I say individual self, it's not easy to accept that, because most of the countries that at least today are participating have a culture of families, joint families, big families. Most of our countries are into cultures, most of our countries have big social communities. And in such a setup, to try talking about individual, to try talking about women's right to body, to try talking about our own rights to body, and for that matter anybody, any person from any community having access to their own body without a community interfering. It's not at all easy. And it was the same problem with Black community. When Black women came in first and they said that we would like to decide for our own selves, for our own body, they got a lot of backlash saying that you're dividing the movement. Anyways, Black people are suffering. There is no Black men and Black women and Black trans people. We all should be just one identity, Black. But and that's something that Black women and Black trans people, they kept on saying that, but we don't feel any kind of connection. Our stories, our realities are not being reflected in the demands, and we want something more. And the only way of we truly achieving any kind of freedom is if we are able to get freedom from our own bodies, if we are able to make decisions. And these are simple decisions that, if you think about it, this is a very simple decision whether you want to have a baby. But how much of power do we have to make those decisions? We have the state interfering, we have the families interfering, we have our partners interfering. I mean, basically, anybody on the road has a right to interfere. That's how we really practice. And this is where reproductive justice takes it a little more further. It says that if anybody really wants to have a fulfilled life, they should be able to live a life based on their own decisions, and the state, the government should be helping them in making those decisions. Now, these were all the struggles. Now, how, what, like if people ask you, so what exactly is sexual and reproductive justice? These are all big words, and I'm going to try writing these, explaining these words one by one because it's not easy. So it basically exists when all people have the social, political, and economic power and resources necessary to make decisions about our gender expression and identity, our bodies, our sexuality, and in our families and communities. So let me say it again. If when people have the social, political, and economic power, so I'll ask you an simple example. If some of us tomorrow want to start having families, you want to start having children and all, what are some of the things you have to do before you suddenly decide that you want to have a family tomorrow? Can you just start a family? What are some of the things you would start thinking? This is a very personal question. Would you prepare or will you just have a baby tomorrow? Like, what are the things, some of the things that you will plan? Yes, Joe. Joe, we can't hear you. Can you be a little more louder?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, Joe.
Okay, so start video. I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess in terms of starting a family, it would be very hard. I mean, you'd have to think about the economic aspect of it. Raising a baby, having a family is very expensive.
Correct.
In connection to that, many women now would want to think about housing or education that would come after it. So if on the whim you'd want to have a family, I think it would be very stressful to plan and think about.
Yeah, sorry for asking a stressful question. Sorry, Joe, about
So yeah, the economic aspect of it, that's what I would think of.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, Matilda, I can see your hand up.
Yes, basically, it will take a lot of efforts to start a family. You just don't wake up in the morning and have a baby or start a family or get married. You just have to be prepared. I think for me, you would have to think of the economic aspect, as the previous speaker said. You would have to think of prepare yourself psychologically on the responsibility that you have to take. And yeah, like there are a lot of prior preparations and thinking that you have to undergo before you start you make any decision.
Anybody else? So we were told economics, which is a huge thing. Then some of us said the stress, the psychological stress of having a child. What else? Do you think you have political power, like as different identities, different bodies? Are you allowed, or do you have to ask somebody else before having a child? Do you have to take permission from someone? Yes, Joe.
Okay, so oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I guess in connection to that prompt, that was a really good thinking point in terms of political, the political aspect of family. In a patriarchal society, it's usually not our decision to make. At least in the Philippine context and in a very Catholic context, a child is seen as a blessing, right? So
Yeah.
uh, with our elders, usually we're very pressured. Oh, when are you going to have kids? Or you graduated now. When are you going to find a husband? So it's not what do you want to do after school? It's usually what are you looking for in a husband or something like that, or how many kids do you want? So um, that alone speaks volumes about how politically intertwined the family is, and um, how much freedom women actually have in terms of bodily autonomy and family.
No, Joe, you're making complete sense. So you've already mentioned we need to ask our parents around. We need to be married. In some of our countries, you can't have children without having marriage. We need to have housing. If we don't have housing, we can't have children. Yes, Matilda, I can. Is your hand up, or you forgot to put it down? Matilda, do you want to add something? I can see your hand up.
No, actually, my house was were left hanging, but I can just tell. I mean, I can add up on the aspect of family, and yes, you have to think of, like, in our context, you have to inform your family that you are getting married, and you won't wake up in the morning and just say, I'm having a child without her husband. I'm not getting married, but I'm having a child. In our culture, you have to get married. They have to undergo all those processes of paying for the bride price and all of that, and finally they send you to your husband. So it's something that you also have to think of before making any decisions regarding to families, for them, like most of the young people will do in our context.
So all of us are still talking about family from a very heterosexual context, and it's because most of our countries, same-sex relationships are criminalized in most of our situations. So imagine if we are people, or if I belong to a community which is not heteronormative, which does not have recognition from law. Can I have a family? Can I have a child? Can I have a child without a partner? You can't raise your hand. Blessed, would you like to answer?
Oh, no, there is go. Hello.
Hi, Blessed. Yes, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Also in the Philippine context, I am a part of the LGBT community, and it was mentioned that they have a very heterosexual context on having the right to have a family. So other than having to think of meeting their basic needs like housing and education and healthcare, one of the things that I would like to be addressed in our country, especially right now, is that if I do want to have children and I am female at birth and I have a partner as a female, and if we do want to have kids, I do not think it is legalized here. And from what I've read so far, you can adopt a child, but you have to be a single parent if you are if you are homosexual, you have a same sex partner. It is not even legal to have same sex marriage here. So how do we have kids, or how do we have the adoption legalized if we are in that situation?
So most of our countries have an understanding of family very much in a heteronormative way. So basically, when I say heteronormative, basically saying that people of opposite sex can form a union, can form a family, only they can have a child, and only then you can reproduce. So what about all people who are outside this group? Single people, people from the LGBT community, older women, people divorced, people who are not part of anything, people who are not married, people who would like to have children but not have partners, three, four friends coming together adopting children. Can this all be seen as families? And that's the limitation of the existing law. Reproductive justice is going beyond that. It is saying that if people would like to have families, they should be allowed to have families by providing them with services, by providing them with health support, by providing them with housing support, economic support. You know, one of the things I get most irritated about in India is that whenever we speak in favor of abortion, people keep telling me that, oh, you women, you just want to have keep having abortion. And I keep telling people, women don't just get up in the morning and they said, you know, today I'm getting bored, I'll have an abortion. Nobody does that. It's a women, or for that matter, any person from any community. If you are thinking of doing anything to your body, even if I'm thinking of going up for a haircut, it's 1 week of thinking and research. I know how many Instagram followers I will follow just to ensure which hair color which would suit me. So if I'm thinking of doing an abortion, I definitely will do 2 to 3 months of research, will definitely talk to people, will definitely look for my options. And it's because people don't realize that these very difficult decisions that we make are big things. People still think families are something that needs to be done by as a community. Decisions on families, decision on our body, decision on reproduction should be done by communities. And this is what reproductive justice is pushing, saying that no, if individuals would like to make decision, they should be supported. And how do we support it is where we go further. Now, if I'm saying we need sexual and reproductive justice, what does it actually mean? Like, what are we asking for? So at Resurj, this is what we believe, that we are aiming to transform unequal power relations. And when I say that, it's very simple. We all know in genders, there are some genders which have more power. When it comes to class, some class which has more power. Race, some races which have more power. Look at global south, look at Southeast Asia, South Asia, America, Africa. We all know there's a power distribution happening. And all this has led to a long term changes. There is some kind of hierarchy that has happened across. And people in the power have been making decisions for all of us for the longest time. We want to change that. We really want to make the power distribution, which has been unequal, balanced. And for that, if we like, it's very simple. If you're thinking of making changes at top level, you need more and more people. You need more and more young people. You need more and more people able to articulate. When I say articulate, basically means able to tell what exactly do we want. So the problem with every time we have young people on a panel or young people speaking about anything, everybody is like, young people don't know what they want. They like protesting, but they are not clear what do they want. It's not true. Young people know exactly what they want. The only thing is, young people are also living. It's so tiring. Like, I was also thinking today in the session, all of you are stuck at your homes. I'm not sure how's the COVID situation in your country. In my country, it's becoming again worse. It's very tiring. And still, all of us are sitting here and learning about reproductive justice, something which is so far. We know one day we'll be able to achieve, maybe 10, 20 years down the line. But here we are trying to sit together and learn, like, what are some of the things we can as young people make a difference. So one of the most important point about reproductive justice is it's about self determination. So it's basically means it's a framework where whoever is the individual, they should be able to make decisions for themselves. And in reproductive justice, I'm going to expand the word woman here and say that people should be able to make decisions for their bodies. Any decision. If you are making any reproductive choices, if you are making any reproductive decisions, you should be able to self determine for yourself without being oppressed, without being discriminated, and without the absence of choices. Now, another question I'll again ask. Imagine like we live in a country world or in a countries where you're allowed to have premarital sex, you're allowed to have, nobody's stopping you, there's no discrimination. But we don't have hospitals. Every hospital is super expensive. Private clinics have made everything super expensive. How do you think we'll be able to live a decent life? When I was talking about health, starting a family, the first thing that everybody said was like economics. If we people don't have economic power, if we people don't have access to resources, if we people don't have access to economic choices, how are we able to experience and live those rights? In most of our countries, we have rights that laws give us. But how do we live? How do we actually actualize those rights? It's not easy if you don't have money. It's not easy if you don't have support. If it's not easy if you don't have access. Like I'll give you an example. So in some of the public health systems in our country in India, abortion is available for people. But a lot of my friends who are on wheelchairs, they keep telling me that for disabled people to reach these public health hospitals, because these hospitals are not wheelchair accessible, they can't reach. So even if women can go for abortions, because of the design of the hospitals, women on the wheelchair cannot reach there. So what really happened is, even though there is a right, they were not able to actualize the right. So what we really need is, we need the right to self-determine and have support systems that help you really make those choices. Now I am coming to a section where it's called social justice versus individual freedom, and it's very little complicated, especially coming from our context of South Asia, Southeast Asia, where our realities are different. So before I get into this, I wanted to ask you this question. So I asked about families, that we're going to start a family, and before that, how many, like, how, what all do we think? Now if tomorrow you want to marry someone, you are in love, we all are in love, but you are in love and you want to marry, you want to actually have legal recognition, who all would you go ask support from? People who don't want to marry don't have to answer, but people who would like to marry, it's easy, we get a legal recognition, who all would you ask support from?
Jasmine, can I say something?
Yes, please.
I mean, I don't have a plan to get married, but I guess hypothetically in this question, of course, the first one that we will really go to would be our family, because we also, again, I'm speaking in the Philippine context, that here in the Philippines, when we need to make a decision, it's always safe to say that we always go to our family, because we have this kind of understanding that our family understands us and that they will support us in whatever we want to do for ourselves.
Anybody else who will go to their family? I can see Fitria. Yeah. Fitria, do you want to add something? I think so Fitria is trying to connect. Anybody else? Who else will you go to if you are thinking of marrying someone?
Um, Vona from the Philippines says in the chat box that she will go to her family and friends.
Okay. Anybody else other than family and friends? And I'm saying this because in the global south, because we are all community driven, we are all people or communities that have always worked as a family, as close knit groups. For us it matters that people, our families support us, it matters. So when When we have this language of reproductive justice, which says that women should have a right to do whatever they want to do with their bodies, it frightens a lot of people, because suddenly what you're saying is women doesn't have to listen to her body, her family, doesn't have to listen to her parents, doesn't have to listen to her partner, doesn't have to listen to her siblings, her uncle, aunts. The only person who gets the right to make that decision is an individual. And it's scary. It makes no sense for a lot of our communities. It makes no sense for a lot of our cultural groups, because we don't function like that. Even if we have to get a new TV in our houses, it's a family decision. Everybody comes together and decides, okay, which TV are we going to get? So if you are thinking of having a child, of course everybody gets to decide when are you going to have a child. So reproductive justice makes it a little more difficult in our own context. So what we need to have to understand is that reproductive justice is not saying that every person, every woman has a right to do whatever with their body. Reproductive justice is saying that we need to demand for a social support. If we have a state, if we have a government, we want the government to take care of ourselves. We want the government to ensure, it's the obligation, it's the duty of the government that we should have options, and the options should be, they should be safe, they should be available, it should be accessible, affordable, and there should be quality. So this is the bigger ask of reproductive justice. It's not just saying that women should have a right to abortion. It's not just saying that women should have a right to have babies. It's saying that women should have social support. Whatever they want to do with their bodies, whatever decisions they want to do with their, if their families, or whatever kind of families they would like, they would require social support. And it's important to understand that when we say social support, it's not just moral social support. We need finance, we need financial bills, we need structures, we need institutions that actually make it happen. Because there's no point of saying that we all have right to abortion, and if we don't have abortion clinics, or if we don't have doctors who will give abortions. Let's take the case of Philippines, a Catholic country where abortion is not just illegal, it's also a sin. So what's the kind of language we can use that convinces people that we have to think about the person who wants to get an abortion? Because we also have to understand the reality, and that's the kind of debate, fights, struggles that in the Philippines, it's a great example to see that how the movements have come together to seek for something bigger. So it's not right just to right to get an abortion, but to right to have a reproductive justice, something more, that women, people have a right to live their lives to the fullest extent possible. So it's not about one individual getting a right to do whatever they want to with their bodies. Now, if we understand, it's not at all easy what we are asking for, because in the struggle against oppression, I mean, I know we all keep saying this big word, patriarchy, 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 but end of the day, it's a very simple concept. The systems we have around, it serves a certain community, and that community doesn't want things to change. I'll give you an example from my own country, India. If women tomorrow go on a strike, most of the families in India will stop working. It's as simple as that. If women from tomorrow say that we will not enter kitchens, if we have a strike in our country, most of our families will fall apart in India, because all the work, all the emotional work, all the reproductive work, all the physical work is done by women in our country. So, but patriarchy ensures that women themselves believe that this is the best for us. I can't leave my family. I can't leave an abusive relationship. I can't just walk out of this because my parents, they will be disappointed. My family would be disappointed. Nobody would be there. So patriarchy has really ensured that all of us believe that we will continue living in this oppression. But if we want to change this, if we really want to make a difference, what are some of the points as a collective, as a community, we can start working on? And this is some strategies that have been shared by Fondo Maria. So Fondo Maria is actually an abortion fund based out of Mexico. Again, another country where abortion is illegal, and they have been doing great advocacy around providing abortion for women. And Fondo Maria believes that in order to struggle against any kind of oppression, we have to get these three pyramids right. I hope so people are able to see my screen here. So it's basically three. We need to have sexual and reproductive health rights. We need to have a legal framework which speaks the language of sexual and reproductive rights. We need to have services. So if you have rights, we also need to have services like to actualize those rights. In order to, if you need to get an abortion, if you need to start a family, if you need to get contraceptives, where do you all go? We go to a place, hospital. We go to clinics where services are provided. And for laws and services to happen, we need to have a community or civil society that keeps mobilizing and organizing. I don't know how tough work has been in all your respective countries, but a lot of mobilization and organization has stopped at some level because of COVID. Some of us are no more going on the ground. Some of us are no more going on doing community work. Most of our work has been shifted to online. So, how do we keep continuing this mobilization work? Because this pyramid that we see here, it's a circle that keeps going. One thing supports the other. So, in this group, how many of us are actually people who work in the community or used to work in the community in the past? Like actually go to the ground field and talk to people. Any community?
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Tanzanian context, basically we are back to the community, and as WGNRR, we don't implement activity direct in the community, but we support other local organizations that are implementing activities in the community.
Thank you. Any other brave people back in the community going out? I can see Fitria already outside.
Hello, Jasmine.
Yes.
Yeah, I also just want to share that when I was in my college, I also had community immersions with the urban poor sector. And most of them were actually, I was able to interact with women, mothers, and young people. Um, After that, I was able to go to other communities for research.
Anybody else who has any kind of like who used to work with the community and now because of COVID is not working? And I'm asking this question, it's because people don't realize how powerful we community leaders are. Because we are the ones who are creating evidences, who are collecting data so that policies can be changed and so that hospitals can be set up. And this is what reproductive justice says, that all the movements need to come together. It's not enough that abortion movement does not talk to public health movement, or public health movement does not talk to lawyers, or lawyers don't talk to child rights group. Every movement needs to speak to each other, because we are not people with single issues. I am not just Indian, I'm also a woman. I'm also a person who belongs to a certain tribe. I'm also a person who belongs to a certain sexual identity. I'm also a person who also has some kind of physical disability. So we all have different identities. So similarly, if we really want to make a difference, we need the movements to come together. So these are some of the strategies that, again, Fondo Maria has brought in together. And I thought it's great for all of us to even think about it. Like, as community leaders, what are some of the things we can do? We definitely need to support the leadership and empowering of young people, women, girls, and people with a culturally relevant context. So, like today, we had people from Indonesia, we have expert people from Philippines, from India, from Tanzania, telling and sharing their stories. We have to ensure that our stories reaches places where it matters, and we have to ensure that we make ourselves strong enough to reach those spaces. We really need to increase our base. It's not enough to keep speaking to the same group. We really need to start spreading more, because if you notice, the right wing is always together. You know, they're always sticking together, whereas Our side is always divided. Abortion people won't talk to child rights groups won't talk to public health group. So we really need to start creating a larger base. We need to increase the capacity. If you want more and more people from the community helping us, we have to mobilize, we have to ensure that people come together. We also have to move out of our focus about homogeneous groups, which basically means all of us have the same ideas, same looks, same thoughts. Not really. Even today, we have around 40 people, and 40 of us have different views and different ideas and different realities. So we have to figure out a leadership style which has space for all of us, all our realities. We need to start breaking silos. We have to talk to each other instead of having uh, a vertical approach. We need to go through a horizontal where all of us are there, not top to bottom, but from going from east to west. How do we ensure that all of us come together? We need to have more and more professional people or people who have some kind of expertise joining us, or literally making the community people becoming the professional experts and speaking in spaces, ensuring that we have more and more say on the table. We really, really need to get into an interdependent movement, which basically means we are aware everybody has something to offer. We can, simple example, abortion is related to COVID, COVID is related to climate change is related to air pollution. All of us affect each other's work, and our lives depend on each other's movements. So it's important that at a larger level, we start looking at interdependent movements. And end of the day, we have to accept that we all have great stories to tell, and those stories are very powerful. So we need to ensure that we keep telling those stories and ensuring that that stories reaches policymakers. So in the end, the idea of all of this presentation was that how do we answer these questions? When you're talking about abortion, when you're talking about young people, when you're talking about human rights, you should not be just limited about from one framework. Reproductive justice gives you a framework which is expansive. Always remember that example, that if you are thinking of starting a family, what all do you have to think about? It's not just your reproduction, from housing to economics to political power to actually reproductive. We think about so many angles. So end of the day, when even when we are framing demands, even when we are framing us for our policy change, go back to your community and ask, will this policy change make a difference for you? Go back to your community and ask, what do you really want? Because please keep listening, because as we are evolving, as we are growing, as a community, as movements, our demands are changing, our frameworks are changing, and it's important for us to be relevant. Because look at this, COVID happened and all of us moved into online spaces because we still want to be relevant. We didn't just say that we'll not move to online spaces. We all moved into online spaces. But how do we ensure that people who haven't moved to online spaces, they are still relevant? They are part of this interdependence movement. So that was roughly our presentation. If anybody has any questions or any comments or any storytelling for that matter, I would really like to use the next 10 minutes for that. I'll just stop sharing just because I was not able to read the comments. Oh, I just read Adra said astrologer. So some people also discuss with their astrologers before starting a family. It happens in our country. Astrologers are people who check the stars and tell you when to have family. So yeah, thank you everybody. That was our presentation in a very concise manner. If anybody has any, oh, okay, Shiv loves astrology. Me too. I too love astrology. So if anybody would like to discuss or even like to challenge or tell us, Jasmine, this is not good enough. We should have sexual justice. We should push it further, pleasure. Why are we not talking about pleasure? Why is still we are so sad and talking about what we don't have? Please push and let's discuss. Please feel free. Yeah. Anybody who would like to say, why is it not sexual and reproductive justice? So Resurj does follow sexual and reproductive justice. It is SRJ for Resurj. And I think so it's because when the justice movement started, it was still very much from ensuring that people have the basics. And sexual justice went further and said that we just don't want the basics. We want to have pleasure. We want to have fun. And in a lot of our countries, it's still difficult because people don't understand that people are dying. There's hunger, and these people want to have fun. These want to have sexual pleasure. But always remember, like I said in the beginning, if we are not happy, if we don't have control on our bodies, if we are not able to make good choices, this whole idea of well-being fails. It makes no sense. So the future should be sexual and reproductive justice. We need to push more, because as we have realized, every time we are asking for something, we are leaving some identities behind. So it's important for us to keep asking, and also keep learning that maybe our ask is not good enough. So keep asking from our communities also, that is this demand good enough, or do you want something more? Talking about engaging community, do you have any experience both in rural and urban setting? Is there any specific approach you use to both? Yes, definitely. So I'll give an example. Yesterday I was talking about it. So we were discussing that why is that the public health movement is not working. So in a lot of our countries, even though we have public health, like the government is putting money, we were not able to handle COVID properly. Whereas in some of the states, and in my country, one of the states which was successful in handling COVID was a state which had a public health movement with a great community health approach, which basically means that the state was willing to give money to smaller communities and was willing to give power to smaller communities to take care of their own districts. So that is basically meaning dissemination of power. So giving back power to communities, and it was successful. So I can give you the name of the state is Kerala. Kerala was able to implement a lot of it because community was given power. Public health approach was used, but the implementation partners were community health workers. So yes, we have a lot of examples. We don't have big examples, but definitely we have a lot of examples. And even the urban and local setting, I think so. We have a lot of people in this group itself who might tell us that what has worked for urban settings, what has worked for community settings, what has worked for rural settings. And if people have answers for this, you can also start typing on the comment section so we can answer. It's not like question is for me, like we can answer each other's questions. But definitely radio is a great approach to talk about sexual health, talk about justice approach to bigger communities. In my country, if there are places where it's not connected to the land, so we use radio. There are people who actually just go there, and actually we use theater, we use pop culture. And I'm pretty sure even in Indonesia, the islands, how do islands approach, how do people from different islands communicate, or even communities have been doing it for generations. We all have generational knowledge, we all have that inherent storytelling. It's just that we need to go back and bring it to the mainstream again. Anybody else who has great experience of working in rural and urban, which has worked? Anybody? Riska, do you want to say something? I can see your video and I can see the mask also.
Yes, I think it's better if we hear something from our young people participants here from Indonesia and Philippines. Anything that you would like to share, or any comments regarding Jasmine's presentation would also be very helpful. Um, Again, as a reminder earlier, you can ask questions. Everyone's free. And it's actually very helpful if we're going to ask a lot of questions, especially if this topic is all new to us, so that we will also be clear and we will have a very thorough understanding of our discussion.
Uh, did you find the justice approach useful? So when I say useful means, do you think it's possible to do it, or did you think this is such it's so huge, it will never happen. Did you find, because I sometimes find this sexual and reproductive justice approach too big for us to implement it.
Can I share something, Jasmine? Yeah, actually, here in the Philippines, actually, as well, specifically in WGNRR, as we're still really exploring and learning about reproductive justice, we're also we're also learning how to incorporate this concept in our works, especially that as we know, the Philippines abortion here is restricted. And right now, we are campaigning to decriminalize abortion in our country. But then sometimes it's kind of hard for us to connect how we can really discuss reproductive justice, this big concept, to the communities, when in reality we cannot actually we still haven't fought, or we still haven't achieved our campaign to decriminalize abortion. So sometimes it's hard for us to really connect. How are we also going to explain this to the community, that abortion is actually a right, and this is not something that should be considered a sin, or something like a moral topic, but it's something that every woman should also, or every pregnant person should also be able to to have as part of their as part of SRHR. So there, sometimes we also have some kind of disconnect on that part.
I think so. The real challenge is, like I said, one of the strategies is to ensure that we have more people supporting us. And for that, we have to really simplify. So if there's one thing I want you to take back from today's session is, we have to simplify our messaging. Our messaging is really complicated. It's huge. If you're trying to convince people that abortion is okay, pregnant people should be allowed to make abortions, then we have to speak the language which gives our message, but in a very simple way. So, yeah, for sure, it's very tough. Justice word itself is so complicated. As a lawyer, I can keep telling you this. I struggle with the word justice when I have to explain it to people who are non-lawyers without using the word legal terms. It's not easy at all. But most of us, because we come from communities, we come from, our work is rooted in community, we have at least 1 year within the community knowing that what is the pulse. So we do know what does a community want, and we need to, it's like this: want was the needs versus the demands, and how do we balance those? I mean, those are the real challenges, and that's the beauty of our work. Like, we get to translate these big theories into something meaningful for our people in the community.
Right. Actually, this is not no longer related to what I said earlier, but I just really want to share that I guess my main takeaway, or my key takeaway in this discussion is that well, I actually noted it, that right itself is not enough. Right should actually be actualized. So I think that's a very powerful message for us to remember, because yes, and precisely because that's also what we are experiencing here in the Philippines, that we have a lot of laws saying these kinds of rights. Actually, our reproductive health law, we have a reproductive health law, but it's not really that working. So this is really important, that rights should really be actualized. And I guess it's also important that as we actualize our rights, we also start to think more and understand the justice aspect of it.
I mean, Adra, this is the answer. Even Serena just answered your question. Like, yes, people are saying you women wanted rights, now you want justice also. Yeah, women want everything. Yeah, I think so. All we are asking is, rights are achieved if there is justice. That's the difference of rights and justice, I think. Yes, Danica, I think so. If you really, I mean, in my head, if justice is achieved, we don't need rights. I don't need rights. I need somebody to take care of me. In my head, it's as simple as that. Why should people say that I have a right? Only then you will be protected. If I am a human, I should be protected. I should be taken care of. I think the problem with rights discourse or rights thing is, Rights means state sanctioned. So states accepts that you have a right. And rights, and if the state says you don't have a right, you cannot fight for it. And that's the problem of limited understanding of rights. Whereas justice says that no human should ever be violated. No human should ever be left alone. So justice is really a lot bigger. Justice also looks at all the angles, like I said. Like if there is a issue of family, justice talks about housing, it talks about economics, it talks about access to contraceptives, it talks about psychological trauma, it talks about everything. Whereas rights will only talk about, okay, I want to have a family, do I have a right to have a family? Yes. So in my head, that's the limitation of rights versus justice, but it's a huge debate. I also would say this is a question I would push you to think, like, when you hear the word justice, what does the first word comes into your mind? It's legal. And that's the problem. Justice can be non-legal also. Justice can be economics. Justice can be healing. Justice can be so many different things. So it's not just law. And we really need to separate law and justice. Justice is a lot more bigger than that. Rights are violated, that's why we are seeking justice. Yeah, rights are violated, and sometimes rights are violated by the state itself. State can decide when you have a right, and state can take it back. In Philippines, abortion is illegal because the state says so. There's no other reason, because the state says so. In India, single women or me as a Catholic cannot adopt a child because the state says so. There's no other reason why I, as a single woman, cannot adopt a child. So definitely we need to push further. And in my head, it's not like we're pushing for the world. We're just saying that let us be. I mean, if I have to go poetic and dreamy about this, we are just saying that don't disturb us. Let us be. You have enough. We are just asking a little bit share. And I think so, like I said in the beginning, we are doing really tough jobs. So thank you to all of you who are doing this tough job. Thank you for giving your energy for this tough job. We need more young people for this. And hugs. I know how tough this work is, extremely tough, and nobody tells us or supports us for that matter. I'm not sure how many of your family members support this work, but here you are. I'm just going to read last comment by Joe, especially how higher income predominantly white groups have adopted the Global South's movement for sexual. Yes, Joe, let's rant about it. Yes, most of us have been left behind. Even our languages, our stories have been picked up by the Global North people, and now they're making it in their stories. So, yeah, economics is a reality. A lot of it is reality. And I think so it's time we start saying that this existing system is not good enough. It has helped us reach, of course, rights have helped us reach us to a certain point, but is it good enough? Is it okay? Are you living a life without fear? That's what is important. Epriska, okay, now we have a lot of people commenting. Yes. Good. Sarina, if you can actually document all these comments, that would be great, because I think that these are really good points. Yes, internet rights, because now everybody's sitting on the internet. Yes, that's the only thing state can think of. It will start censoring internet. It will start censoring your thoughts. It will start censoring. But I just want to leave you all on a good note. There are a lot of people who are thinking about alternatives, who are thinking about what can be done which is outside of what we are doing. State has a duty to take care of us, and state needs to stop there. State cannot become our fathers or our patriarchs. State is just there to assist us. State is not there to control us. And I think so that is the message we have to drill, that we have a father, we have a husband, we don't need a state also to take care of us. No, we have enough people taking care of us. We just want state who will provide us services. You are just a service provider, nothing else. But yeah, it's a very difficult message to keep saying. Yeah, I mean, I would always also encourage people to write positive comments because I don't want people leaving with a negative. But yeah, end of the day, remember there is this whole. I have a question about stigma and discrimination as a young, how we face the reality of life, and there's so many culture and, for example, right to get safety of abortion. It is tough. Donatus, it's very tough, especially if your right is also affected by your religion, your sexuality, your culture. It's really tough. So that's what I'm saying. We need to figure out a language which appeals to the emotional side of people. Because like I said, when we are thinking of getting an abortion, it's not like we get up and say that, oh, today I feel like getting an abortion. It's not like that. And we have to make people understand that women or people are making decisions that at this stage of my life I cannot afford this abortion. The word is afford. Abortion is costly. Abortion is, it's a toll on emotions. Abortion is, it's a toll on physics, our physical health. Abortion is a lot of things. It's not just one surgery. It's a lot of things for a lot of people, and we need to keep having those conversations. So again, I'm saying this, all of us are doing this difficult conversation. Take care of yourself, because after some time we'll all get tired. So we need energy. I really hope so you all were drinking water, because I know listening to all these intense things can tire people up. Yes, Wulan, we are going there. Fire. I can see some fire happening on the comment section now. Yes, breaking the taboo. Yeah, please take care of yourselves. I mean, it's important to bring down whatever we are trying to bring down, but take care of yourself. It's a tough job. And yeah, that's the whole point of having these learning sessions. Be there, support each other, keep encouraging each other, and inshallah, we'll reach there. I think so. I would love to see people's faces, because all this energy, it's nice if you can, like, show your faces, and just, it's exciting. Yes, Adra, thank you for showing your face. No, it's just that I can feel the energy from the comment section. So I was like, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Blessed. Thank you, Matilda. Thank you. No, it's nice. I mean, just to know that there at least there's 40 of us to whom this matters. So yeah, it's actually nice. Oh, everybody opened. Oh, thank you. I suddenly saw. Sarina, is there a way of making all these beautiful faces come on one screen?
Yes, yes, definitely. We
Oh,
want to see the
everybody,
beautiful faces now.
everybody's dressed up.
There.
Oh,
So yeah,
nice. Hi,
there.
Kwamben. Hi, Wulan. Hi, Joe. Hi, Riska. Hi, Danica, Priska, Ping. Hi, Tia. Tia, you can smile a bit. Hi, Shiv, Lian, Khalil, Odessa, Wana, Hannah, Aubrey, Mark, Zara. Hello.
Is this the photo session now? Can we do a photo session
I
now that
guess
everyone's?
Yes, Bing. We're all setting our hair now.
Oh, okay, okay. Because I
good.
left a bit for a while. Okay, are you going to take a photo? Where are you now in the screen, Serena? You are
Yes.
okay.
It's actually, I'm so glad that we are 2 pages in this Zoom series. So that means we are a lot. We're 40. So I don't know who will be part of the first page of my Zoom screenshot. So just keep your smiles there. Keep your smiles pasted until I say stop. Okay. 3, 2, 1, smile. And now I'll go to the second page. All right. There. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, smile. There you go. So once again, thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining us in this discussion. This is the first of the 4 sessions, and we're very, very happy that you were the first to speak. It's a very powerful and it's very insightful. Um, for sure, our young people here have learned a lot, and I think there will be more time for them also to understand more and understand better our topics. In the coming sessions, we will also have other topics that will also be related to young people, and then afterwards on abortion as a right. So any other comments or any other words from our participants before we finally close our first session? Miss Bing, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'm sure Jasmine have already mentioned this, but I'd like to reiterate that um, well, this topic, reproductive justice, really is about tackling and dismantling social inequalities that hinders our, well, your ability, our ability to exercise our reproductive self-determination, and that actually includes safe abortion. So that's why we need this discussion for us to be able to understand the very concept of justice, the very concept of reproductive justice, that it's not actually separate, that it's not that we are part of the whole social justice movement, that as advocates for bodily autonomy and for sexual rights is not, you know, we are not, we are part of this whole movement to change the world, so to speak. And by doing so, we have to make sure that we dismantle the inequalities in society for us to be able to fully exercise and achieve our sexual and reproductive self-determination. So this is a series, and I really do hope that 40 of us will stay in the series of discussion, and by the end of this 4 series, we can think of something that we can actually do together. So the reason why we have Indonesia and the Philippines in India is that because we have similar issues. And Matilda is also here, coming from Tanzania, to talk about what is the context in Tanzania. And similarly, even if culturally they are very different from us here in Asia Pacific, the same barriers and the same, you know, problems on young people, they are also facing that. So we hope that by the end of this 4 session we can think of something that we can do together. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Jasmine. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone.